Hello, my name is Esther, and today I'm going to be talking to you guys about the TN visa. This is different than most of my other videos because this will be a more informative video based on the TN visa application process and how to get yourself over to the US to work as a Canadian citizen.
Now, just something that I forgot to add as well. Although I graduated with a biological sciences degree, I was able to land a job as a clinical laboratory associate at one of the companies in California. What they basically say is, although it is ideally best to have the job completely match the degree that you got your schooling in, for example, an engineering position after getting a bachelor's of science in engineering, there is a bit of leeway as long as you can talk to the border officer and convince them that your job and what you've learned is the same thing.
Before we begin, this video is going to be separated into a couple sections. I will first touch on what the TN visa is and then things that you will need to apply for the TN visa prior to getting to the airport. Afterwards, I'll talk about what you have to do at the airport, what happens at the airport, and also then just my experience as a biologist going to the US and working for a company. I'll also be addressing things to look out for and just also some general tricks and tips to get you through the whole application process. And lastly, I'll be touching on how to look for jobs that might be willing to sponsor you for your visa so that you can also come to the US and work temporarily. A little bit about the TN visa. It's a visa that is under a NAFTA free trade agreement, which allows Canadian as well as Mexican citizens to work in the US. It should be noted, however, that the Mexican process is different than the Canadian process. So this will be based on the process as a Canadian citizen going to the United States. For this type of visa, it's really great because it's extremely convenient. You apply at the port of entry. So in my case, I was able to actually get the visa before I even fly into the US. You get approved or you get results almost immediately in a couple hours, and it's valid for up to 3 years so that you can work in the US, though you can always extend that if you wanted to. What should be important to note, however, is that this is a non-immigrant intent visa, meaning that you're only deciding to come to the US to work temporarily. You will be returning back to Canada once your term is over. On to things that you need to apply for the TN visa. The most important thing that you need to have is a job letter. The job letter should state things such as what you're going to be doing, when your start date is going to be, how long you're going to be working in the US, why your experience and your background is able to contribute to the work environment, and lastly, what you are going to be doing and how your skills right now are going to transfer into the job position. Another thing that would be nice to have or maybe included is the support letter. The support letter would basically say that the company would like temporary help and you are the best fit for it, and that's why they've decided to hire you. If you're going to have access to a lawyer, they will most likely help you with this entire application process, and then they will ask you to sign a G28. It's a legal document just saying that someone else, aka a lawyer, has helped you throughout this application process, and they will be your representative should anything go wrong. What you also need to bring to the airport is multiple copies of your resume. The most updated one, in terms of the address, you can have your Canadian address because you might not have a place to live in the US at the time. And the resume should be fitted just like how you apply for the job. It should be fitted as to why your qualifications and your background is going to benefit the specific position. Another thing that I just brought as an extra thing that did end up getting used was a printout of the homepage of the company that you're going to work for. If you were to Google your company, just print screen the homepage in case the officers at the port of entry want to take a look at the company to show them that it is a legit place. It's advisable that you arrive at the airport around 3 to 4 hours prior to your flight. This is just in case the port of entry is super busy For myself, because I applied at a designated airport that deals with TN visa applicants on a daily basis, they were able to expedite the process because the officers knew what they were looking for. Once you arrive at the port of entry, you're going to meet one of the officers and you're going to tell them that you want to apply for a TN visa. Once you tell them of that, they will bring you to a separate waiting area, and that is where they will start processing your documents. Have all of your documents in a separate folder so that you can hand it straight to them alongside your Canadian passport, and they will bring it over to their desk and start processing your application. The area that they bring you to is called a secondary area, and it looks essentially like a waiting room. That is basically what you have to do. You have to wait. Although it may seem extremely agonizing, it's worth it in the end. They may call you to their booth a couple of times just to ask questions or to clarify things, but it's important to remember, just talk to them in a professional tone and answer all of their questions truthfully. Now, some little tips and tricks for the entire application process. Prior to arriving at the airport, it's nice if you have a lawyer or a representative from the company just to go over the basic details. Know exactly what you're going to be doing on a day-to-day basis. Kind of memorize a little script of what you're going to tell the officers, and don't fake it. This is going to be what you are going to actually be doing at the job. Also, just to have everything organized. If you have everything organized in a little pile, bring multiple copies, make sure that everything is signed and up to date, then it makes the process a lot easier for the officers. Another thing to look out for is to always answer truthfully. For myself, the officers seem to ask a couple questions sometimes that were in a way misleading and may have caused me to say something wrong or to say a lie. It's important to always, if they are saying something that doesn't sound right, it's always best to correct them and just tell them, oh no, actually this is what happened, in case they are trying to figure out if you are lying to them or not. Some other tips and tricks will be to practice what you are going to say to the officer. The most important thing is to remain calm but also be professional. When I met up with the border officer, I actually wore some business casual clothing just so that I could feel more professional and more confident during the entire situation. Also, be sure to look over your job description and offer letter yourself prior to meeting up with the border officer so that you can prove to the officer that you know what you will be doing. It may sound silly, but you need to know the aspects of the job before you even start the job. Lastly, I'll be talking about how to look for jobs that may be willing to sponsor a TN visa. Theoretically, it should be one of the first questions that you ask a hiring manager or recruiter when you are applying for certain positions. Although the job that I applied for never explicitly stated that they were willing to sponsor a TN visa, once I had my first initial interview and I asked the company about it, they were willing to do so, and so my application could proceed. What is also nice to add is you can always tell the potential employer that this visa is different than other visas that would permit you to work in the US, whereas this is a very expedited process. Other work visas may take at least 6 months just to get the papers sorted out, whereas for this visa, you get it the day you fly out of Canada. And so it was extremely convenient. You pay around $50 for the application process, and knowing that you have the visa before you even land in the US is quite convenient. By saying these things to the interviewer, it also encourages them to take a look at it and to know that this visa isn't as dependent on them than it is just dependent on the employee themselves. And now just a couple common questions that have been circulating around the internet. In terms of the jobs that are eligible to apply for the TN visa, go on to the TN visa website, and it actually provides a list of professions that are recognized under the NAFTA agreement, which will allow you to apply for that specific job title to get over to the US. Another question that people often ask is, well, how difficult is the process? To be fair, the process isn't difficult per se, though it is just more so a little bit mentally draining because you have so much to prepare. And in a way, it's a little bit high stakes, given that if you don't get the visa at the port of entry, you still have a flight to catch. So what would you be doing? It's always just best to prepare yourself, and the more that you prepare, the more confident you'll feel at the airport or at the port of entry, and the higher the chances of success for you to work in the US. If there are any questions, feel free to drop a comment down in the comments box. And that is all I have for today. Thank you.